In this lecture, we're going to look at compact housing in the context of how it contributes to communities and the environment. Many nonprofits find that the arguments against them doing their housing is that affordable housing and compact housing, especially the two combined, bring negative environmental consequences into a community. What this lecture tries to do, and the tool associated with it, the PowerPoint companion, is to provide nonprofits and their advocates with the kind of arguments they may need to make to create a positive impression of the benefits of compact housing, to show how it contributes to sustainable development and sustainable community goals, and also to try and demystify density and some of the public fears about it. In the first part of the lecture, we're going to look at making the argument, which I do believe, that sustaining communities and the environment depends upon our ability to deliver well-designed, compact, and affordable housing. The thing about compact housing is that it does come in different kind of models. In another lecture in the series, we went over in great detail what those models are. But to refresh you, or to acquaint you if you're visiting this lecture first, let's look at the different kind of models of compact housing that we're going to be talking about. Compact single-family detached housing at 7 to 21 units per acre, single-family with secondary units at 17 to 24 units per acre, multiple units with single-family appearance 8 to 22 units an acre, row houses at 10 to 40 units an acre, multifamily at 16 to 51 units an acre, and multifamily 21 to as high as 236 units per acre. All of those different kind of housing typologies are really part of a long-standing American tradition. And the first thing project sponsors need to feel confident in is that they're part of that tradition. And what they need to do is present to their audiences, skeptics in many cases, is that compact and affordable housing is in fact part of what we are all about. Here's an interesting example. If we look at this particular set of images, it's very likely that most people would say these are all fairly attractive models of housing. But could you or they distinguish which are affordable and which are market rate, which are old and which are new? Let's look at that. On the upper left-hand corner, Gray's Meadow is an all-affordable, low-income rental complex of garden townhouses in California. On the upper right-hand side, closely spaced Victorian homes, closer to one another than, in many cases, modern zoning would allow, and yet extremely desirable. On the lower left-hand side, brand new closely spaced compact homes that are market rate and oriented toward market rate buyers, only 3 feet apart, and yet selling very well and evoking a 1920s style of American neighborhood. On the right-hand side, the real 1920s style American neighborhood, a mixture of 2-story houses, 3-story flats, and living over the corner store. What are the housing benefits to the public of compact housing? In aggregate, compact development certainly saves open space. America is consuming more space to house every new resident than at any time in our history. 1.5 million acres of farmland were lost just last year to accommodate all new development. And at the same time, many suitable urban sites where compact housing could have been built were vacant. Compact development definitely saves car trips. Many academically valid studies that have been released by mainstream institutions show that low-density areas require residents to drive somewhere between 20 to 40% more each day than residents in compact communities. Compact development is healthier in many ways. Low-density communities have worse air, higher traffic, and higher pedestrian fatalities than compact communities. A recent study done by Smart Growth America and Cornell and Rutgers University rated and ranked every major city in America and covered about 70% of our population, and found conclusive evidence that compact development is healthier for you in all ways. Finally, compact development supports communities. Everyone wants to find viable local stores and businesses that they can reach near their homes. And these do best when more people live in walking distance or within a short drive. Essentially compact homes support the vital communities, the places where we like to live, work, and shop close to homes that Americans enjoyed for over a century before the advent of the 1960s and 70s. Compact housing also provides benefits for residents. Polls show in California recently, but also in other parts of the country over the last several years, that when given a choice between a large lot home, but one that requires a lot of driving, and a smaller lot compact home, but in a neighborhood close to shops, jobs, schools, and local parks, about a third of the American public would want to have that compact home. The fact that it's not provided is what prevents them from getting it, not the lack of desire. Compact housing that allows people of many different incomes to be able to afford different housing choices all in the same place they live builds community stability. When your workforce leaves town every day to live in upper or lower class suburbs on the perimeter of your region each night, it not only has an effect on traffic and transportation and air quality, it depopulates your city, and it means the stakeholders who earn their living and contribute to the local economy aren't living there at night. Sound and social economic benefits, these are clear. Residents of compact communities spend less time on cars and have more time and resources for families and their communities. The results of the poll and the studies that I've looked at indicate that people living in compact communities, that is where they can walk to conveniences, their houses may be on smaller lots, it doesn't mean their homes are small, on average require, as we have looked at it in the western states, 1 car less per household than people living in sprawling suburbs. And 1 less car per household can save $10,000 to $14,000 a year of a family's budget just on maintaining the car, as well as hundreds of hours of time spent in it. So if compact housing is actually what's good for us, what's not good for us is low-density sprawl in America. This is the real threat to our quality of life, not dense, affordable housing. The real threat is that low-density new development is consuming more land to house fewer people than ever before. That looks like this when we get down at ground level. Standard lot sizes mandated by outmoded zoning codes require wide streets and wide front yards, and often coupled with poor design, it leads to a tremendous inefficiency in how we use our land. And to boot, it promotes a kind of community anonymity like this, where mostly we know garages and cars and not who lives in the homes behind. At the other end of the scale, zoning protection encourages high-priced, high-consuming estates and large home lots. And these are spreading all over America. Recent studies in the West have shown that one of the biggest threats to our landscape, to our farmland, to our water sources, and to our forest are not tiny little houses on small lots, but spreading large homes on large lots that are consuming a lot of farmland and laying waste a lot of watershed and habitat areas. Finally, what knits all this sprawling development together is a network of wide roads and strip centers and old town centers, none of them particularly efficient, all of them taking a tremendous amount of land, and our schools, jobs, and stores are spread further and further apart by this pattern. This kind of development and road pattern discourage walking or bicycling. Recent studies by the National Institute of Health, the American Lung Society, and others point that asthma, which is directly attributable to the exhaust from automobiles in our air, and immobility that creates obesity and contributes to other kinds of diseases are the 2 fastest growing health problems for Americans. Both of them attributable to all the time we spend in our car and our inability to walk or bicycle to places near us. Car use for non-work destinations now accounts for almost 3/4 of all trips in our nation. We'd have more of that compact development in our towns if our cities were not so eager to get hotels and big box sales generating, that is sales tax generating uses into our communities. Now, it may be very convenient for people to have a Walmart or a large big box near them In fact, a huge workforce is required to staff these facilities. Many of those people are low paid. They cannot find affordable housing in the places where the stores are built, and they get in their cars every day and crowd the roads as they go to the outskirts of our regions for low-income housing that they can afford, or back into the inner cities to dangerous neighborhoods, which is all they can afford. The low-paid workforce that's required by these large box retails is the hidden underbelly of contemporary American land use planning. And it's as much of a threat to us in terms of the inequities produced. Some communities winning the sales tax, but not taking responsibility for housing the workforce. Others becoming the places of refuge for the underpaid workers. At the same time, large areas on commercial strips and in former industrial areas lie fallow. And yet developers and consumers would love to live in these areas if proper design and compact housing with many amenities were able to be placed there. So, in summary, the jobs and housing's imbalance is worsening in America everywhere. Worse in certain parts than others, but certainly every community feels it in some way. And more people are driving longer commutes to find affordable homes than ever in the history of America. What's the solution? Compact housing. It can meet our household needs and enhance community livability. And how is that done? First, a diversity of housing types. Second, much more efficient land use patterns. Third, doing it in a way that's neighborhood compatible. Fourth, providing services and programs along with housing, so that with more compact development also become the benefits, the open space, the schools, and the programs that make living close, living well. Finally, this will take infrastructure investments and improvements in our older cities, but that will more than pay for itself by what we don't pave over in the countryside. Finally, all this really requires transit and walking choices, but Americans will make those choices, which is better for their health if they're there. And in the end, one of the most important things is to combat the negative impression that formerly poor designed high-density or affordable housing may have created in the minds of many Americans. Yes in my backyard is the antidote to no in my backyard. And by no small coincidence, if we look at what is spelled out by all these charges, it is density.